Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Catwoman, directed by B. Toff, Ghost Rider by Mark Steven Johnson, Green Lantern by Martin Campbell, Fantastic Four, the 2015 version, directed by Josh Trank and Stephen E. Rivkin, and we have newly released Morbius, directed by Daniel Espinosa. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Thomas Rucker, how's it going?
That's going all right. It's going all right. How was your week of movies, man?
Week was, we're participating in what you love most, is filling out the lows. I
love filling out the low ends. I mean, this could be a mini special in itself and be just a bad superhero week.
I had a reverse philosophy from the Lost City episode. I was trying to bring up and watch other movies, kind of bring and raise it all up together. For this, I was not looking forward to Morbius, so it was a deep dive. I figured, let's dive even deeper into the true depths of how bad a superhero movie could be. I'll say for folks at home, this is a random selection. Any kind of Marvel, DC fan war, I do not participate.
You were really just looking for bad superhero movie.
Absolutely.
And these just some stinkers, I hope. I can't wait to see these scores.
Yeah. So it is unreal. I would say there was some odd satisfaction this week in watching these movies this way.
How so?
I mean, these are some mad movies.
These are so bad it's good? Or
no.
Okay.
But like so bad it's like it makes you understand what is truly bad. And what is like unsalvageable as far as a film. So there was an odd exploration of that. So it was interesting, at least. I don't know if it was enjoyable, but oddly satisfying.
Well, I can't wait I think the episode's going to be enjoyable, that's for sure. Let's start right away. We're back in 2004. This is Halle Berry as Catwoman. This is Catwoman. And what do we have for this first wonderful movie?
Oh, man. Directed by a man that has one name and apparently quite nearly zero talent. Catwoman is a product of the Spider-Man, Sam Raimi copycat era of superhero films in the early 2000s. The first Spider-Man was something that created a lot of waves, and this was definitely a copycat is really the word. I think it establishes a tone this week for the movies we're covering for folks at home. Very simply, a common criticism that we have with these movies is that there is a lot of copycat aspects to it. Nearly all these films are origin stories, the cliche of the superhero origin.
Right.
There's a lot of retreaded plot points, a lot of retreaded, as far as the conflict in the film. It is all trying to be a copycat of what came before it, and a lot of what that tone is the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, which were huge.
And those ended in 2003, I think? Or maybe the last one came out in 2004, the third one.
I think maybe a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
I'm not too sure, though.
But the point was that these were really
trendsetters.
Yeah, because it was before. Not that we didn't have superhero movies before. I think we had Batman and everything like that with Michael Keaton, but
not like a modern superhero movie.
No,
a lot of people credit the X-Men films being the first modern superhero movies, but I think Spider-Man. Really
I think they kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman first Spider-Man. Hugh Jackman first X-Men. And Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. Those definitely set things off. I mean, they're really what set off the Marvel explosion.
Oh, for sure. I mean, up until then, we had like TV movies and very bad
it was something special back then. So you're saying, especially for this Catwoman in 2004, and even probably with a little bit of Green Lantern, which is 2007, which is kind of before the Marvel really popped off.
I mean, again, Catwoman is DC. I think it was more so just everyone with these properties, the studios, they're just trying to make something out of it. They saw the money being made, and they say, "Hey, we got one of those."
Well, that's why we have two Hulks. We have two Hulks.
Oh, for sure.
Before we actually get the Marvel Hulk,
absolutely. That first Hulk, directed by Ang Lee, was a big contender for this list, and I was very close to watching it. But
well, if you think about it, if you go off of bad superhero movies, you just look in the past 22 years.
Yeah,
there's plenty there.
Absolutely,
this could be a multi-special, a multi-episode.
And I think what combines or compounds that is that these movies are generic, predictable in the first place, and then to have copycats and less effective copycats of that, that's really where some of these very, very low performing movies are going to be coming from. Why don't we get started with Catwoman? I'm really going to have to tackle this in twos because, folks at home, there is a colossal amount bad with this film. Let's start with the character itself. This has no connection to Batman. It is not in Gotham City, and the character is honestly written downright insulting with the female tropes of the film. This is Catwoman working in the makeup industry. The character is brain dead stupid at the beginning until she is given her powers, and it feels very odd that we would cast the character in such a way. This is not Selena Kyle. The character of Catwoman in this is named Patience. Patience Phillips, which is just like such a weaker name to begin with. I mean, as far as like your writing there, but
Patience Phillips.
Patience Phillips, yeah. I mean, not that Selena Kyle is amazingly impressive, but like, no cool appeal, no sex appeal. It is rough. While there is creative differences or creative distance between these two characters, it does not result in a likable Catwoman here. I don't mind when comic book movies take creative differences or try to improvise on the ideas of what they're presenting. I'll probably have to return to it many times, but Spider-Man does not shoot webs out of his body, That is not how it's done. So I have no problem with films maybe taking a little bit of a creative direction and creating more palatable for audiences.
They're their own property on their own right.
Exactly.
The film itself,
Exactly.
But not done well.
Not done well. Halle Berry is idiotic, plain and simple. It is just she is just wholly unlikable in this. Her power doesn't feel deserved at all. For some reason, in this era, they feel like they have to tie the power into some sort of spirit or some sort of larger picture. Like, she can't just be a cat burglar or anything like that on the side, even if you want to put her in like the makeup industry and whatnot. What's very odd is like it's tied to this like Egyptian cat spirit that possesses her, and now she has like reflexes, and it's terrible. It is really god awful. And again, I can't stress enough. If maybe some aspects of this origin were done a little bit more uniquely, creatively, as far as the execution or the follow through, I might accept it, but wow, it just knows on almost every aspect of it.
Story development was not good, and the writing wasn't good, and the acting wasn't good.
Yeah. And
not good character either.
And not good characters, and it's just very tough to get behind this character. Even if you say, hey, this is a superhero movie or an anti-hero movie for females specifically. Again, I think even in 2004 when this came out, it insulting. You can't get behind this character. They're that dumb, you know. I mean, it's real rough.
And it doesn't take place in Gotham? Does it take place in New York City? What's the deal?
I honestly, I can't remember the specific city name. I don't know if it's ever mentioned, but there's a lot done to create a separation from Gotham. I think they probably knew that this was not going to fly in whatever, you know, pre-Nolan Batman, you know, this is a lot. The literal interpretation of Cat attributes to her powers is plain stupid. She has a fear of rain, a love of milk. Like, what? Like, why? And there's just nothing remotely creative. It almost plays into just a cartoon version of a cat. It's just like,
it's bad.
It's mind-boggling. Combine this with some of the most laughable lines ever written in a screenplay to attempt to try to make her badass, and you have the spoiled mess that is the acting and the writing of this character. It is really truly unreal. She will turn around and try to say something badass, and
it's laughable.
Oh my god!
It's just cringeworthy. It's
not cringe. It is gut laughter that they got out of me. I was honestly in disbelief of how bad this movie was. Even more horrific is the CGI, and early CGI of how the action looks in this film. The CGI is presented at a little bit of a higher frame rate, possibly if they wanted kind of a smoothness or fluidity to it, but it makes you spot it instantaneously because it sticks out like a sore thumb. Much like any kind of higher frame rate experiments happen in film. Of course, Hobbit is a perfect example of something that we both know.
Yeah.
Halle is also swapped in completely out in many sequences, which makes them even more jarring. She's swapped out for a completely CGI character, which just looks terrible because it's 2004. Really? And her interacting in an action capacity even has less weight because then you have even worse actors in extras trying to react to clearly something that I don't think even was modeled out or had an approximation for it in them shooting this film. The action really compounds here with this CGI, though. A classic use of CGI is her wall running. She has cat powers, so she runs on
walls, of course.
Right.
As you would assume.
Right, of course. It's just it truly fails because of the logic and the choreography in these scenes. There is such a terrible rhythm to these fights that it really might be the worst thing that the film has going for it. There's a bank robbery scene that Catwoman is for some reason trying to stop. You know what I mean? Again, I could go on and on about the characterization of this character and just like the fundamental misunderstanding. But she's trying to stop this bank robbery scene, and the thugs, they're shooting shotguns at her, dust settles, and she just appears behind them. Like, there's no logic to the fight sequence. She's running around on walls. It's terrible. She's constantly... Her key move is like her just popping up behind someone, but it's not even like she's dropping down from the ceiling. Like, she pops up from like knee height behind them. She's not a ninja. She's a cat. I don't... Ooh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Folks at home, if you ever feel confused over, not even my own, but a criticism of a fight scene, honestly, watch some of the sequences. Don't watch this movie, but watch some of the sequences of this film, and you will know why a fight scene wouldn't stick. There is a lack of logic. There is a lack of stakes. That connective tissue that sells the fantasy for us at home.
Yeah.
It's just not
It's just
there.
not there.
It's not there. And again, you know, I mean, it's just, she's just showing up behind people. She's just popping out behind people. It's just terrible. Soundtrack is really, really bad. Oh my God. Oh, like, wow. Like, unreal bad. It is like a awful 2000s R&B. it's almost as if they hired a Christina Aguilera impersonator and then gave her no lyrics.
Okay.
It's very like, ooh, but that's it. There's no lyrics. It's weird. It's very odd. I just don't know what they were thinking with it. The pacing, I mean, again, I'm just getting started here with this. It is all over the map. Mind-boggling what this film decides to spend its time on. It really is, I would say, well over half a early 2000s rom-com.
They spent a lot on the love story.
Oh, yeah, there is a lot. And maybe this plays as well into some of my criticism of that there's almost insulting female aspects to this.
Right.
The amount of time that is put on this detective character in the film to give Catwoman...
Is this Benjamin Bratt?
I think
this
so.
This is Tom Lone?
Tom Lone,
yeah,
yes. Oddly enough, that name stuck out much more than Patience Phillips. But the amount of time that is spotlighted on this terrible romance and this awkward kind of meet cute between Halle Berry and this detective character, it's too much. All of this culminates in, if you know this film, you know what I'm going to say. There is a terribly bad basketball scene.
Is it really?
Oh my God. It is the basketball scenes from anyone's nightmare, from my nightmares.
Oh my gosh. What is it about? I think we should do a special or compilation on bad basketball movie scenes.
It would be Return to LA.
Yeah, I was going to say Escape from LA.
Yep.
And then this.
I mean, it's just as she's getting into her powers, so
Yeah.
she's like just discovering it. There's also a dumb playfulness that Halle Berry has, probably coached her to say, "Hey, you're supposed to be a cat. Maybe you're like excited by the ball." Like,
are you serious?
It is terrible bad. Like it is. It is bad. This basketball scene is. Honestly, I wish I could say it's so bad it's good. I mean, it is definitely hysterical, but there is just such a souring it does to the movie, and really spotlights like, why are we spending time on this?
Right.
Why is this basketball scene? You know, can't we have one sequence where she's actually stealing something or doing anything that Catwoman actually does? You know, it's so bad. It's so bad. To get a movie, though, this bad, there has to be, honestly, a critical failure in both the technical and stylistic level. Stylistic level I talk about all the time, but technically this shame falls on a lot of the editing and a lot of the cinematography, with both are excessively bad in this. These professionals, Sylvie Landra and Thierry Arbogast, they've both worked on good things. They've both worked on Fifth Element, and mind-bogglingly, they both worked on Leon the Professional as well.
Oh, wow.
And when I say the editing and the cinematography might be the worst aspects of everything we've talked about so far, I really mean it. I mean, this is where technically the film is really failing in a critical capacity. Like
Yikes.
there is some.
What was the disconnect between collaborators on this? Leon the Professional has like an 88.
Absolutely,
it's in the must-watches.
Absolutely, phenomenal film, and clearly there's some team members or some professionals working together. They've stuck together over the course of this. You can see that tied into Fifth Element. I forget the director's name of that, but definitely echoes of I believe a French film industry at that time in the early 2000s. But wow, I mean, It is bad, and that's really where my joking critiques of this really go into what is actually wrong with this film, and it lies in those technical aspects that I really do see as a failure. There were multiple times that I had to pause the film because I was taking notes, and I honestly just could not keep up with just like how many bad things. There's a club scene that there is the edits. I don't know, Tom. In like a 5-second interval, there's probably like 30 edits. There's 30 cuts. It's insane. I don't know how someone says, yes, this is a finished movie, or yes, this is a movie at all. Like,
that's bad.
So bad. shockingly bad, I think, is the summary here for all of this. And even though you may have a morbid curiosity, folks at home, to check this out, I assure you this is not worth 1 ounce of your time. We are going to go ahead and give Catwoman a 7.
Oh, fantastic.
I knew you'd be happy with that. So.
It's not every day we get a single digit.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that's
it is
really,
definitely not every day we get a movie this bad.
That's really approaching Jack and Jill level.
Oh, for sure.
This is almost worst movie on the site.
I was on the edge there. I mean, because again, there's a technical failure of actual filmmaking here.
Yes.
In addition to all stylistically that I could really just like crucify. There is some serious failure here.
7%. Yes, that might be the second worst on the site.
I think so.
Because I think
it definitely deserves it.
Something is an 8. I think Face Off is an 8 or some such.
Yeah.
Which actually some people like that movie. But
wow,
7%. That's fantastic. I think the worst Escape that we did, I think it was LA, and that was 11%.
I think it's somewhere down there.
I think one of them was 11 and one of them was 17.
Oddly enough, sports sequences in a non-sports movie is kind of a mark. Kind of a trend.
Oh, right. Okay, 7%.
Fantastic. He's way too pumped for this.
I'm hoping it goes down from here. Yeah. Okay, so that's all right. That's definitely enough. We spent way too much time on Catwoman. 7% for Catwoman. We're going to move on here. So this is 3 years after. We're in 2007. Mm-hmm. This is the old tried and true. I mean, they made multiples after this, but this is Ghost Rider. Vin, what do we have here?
Okay.
What do we have with Nick Cage?
So this movie actually gave me the idea of theming this week.
You started here?
Not started here, but it was just the inception of, with comic superhero movies. They are plentiful, and right behind them is the edgy anti-hero comic book movie flick.
Yeah.
I'm talking Spawn, I'm talking Blade, I'm talking Hellboy. Even modern day, we have Venom and Morbius right in line with that subgenre.
Sure.
So revisiting Ghost Rider was kind of what spawned all this, because Ghost Rider has one hell of a reputation behind it. Ghost Rider tells the story of Johnny Blaze, played by none other than Nick Cage.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Johnny Blaze. I love it.
It's a good name. It's a good name. A hotshot stuntman that makes a deal with the devil to be his eternal knight of vengeance. When a group of bad boy demons come to town, the Ghost Rider is there to meet them, and Johnny is only saved from the spirit of vengeance by his love interest in Eva Mendes. Don't get me wrong, there is a stupid romance in nearly all of these movies, and I think if anything really represents, or just the needless romance represents some of what I talk about of bullshit origin story, startup, slowness, bad problems with pacing. I think it all roads lead back to a bad romance in these films in some way.
Yeah.
But why Ghost Rider is bad is just how much it is the backbone of his character. Johnny is his defining trait is that he is lifeless in his stunt rider life. He is a thrill seeker, but is not thrilled by any of what he does. The romance between him and Eva Mendes it's not bad. It actually holds some of the more legitimately funny comedic moments, but it's just so odd that he has nothing to his character before this moment of reconnecting with her. Nick Cage is a unreal force of manic energy in this. For some reason, he is wrote to like jelly beans and laughs outrageously at TV. Also, a self-described lover of too much TV. He says, "I watch too much TV in this." It's like, what? I don't know. I honestly can't fact check if this is a trait of Ghost Rider. I don't think it is, but why is is Nick Cage just doing this on his own? Did they write this for him? I do think if there is going to be a movie out of this week that dips into a so bad it's good type of area, Nick Cage is the key here, because there is, I wouldn't really call it second act, but we'll call it, first half, the manic energy that Nick brings is legitimately funny and is played for comedic effect. You know?
Okay.
I really do think it works in ways.
I mean, there has to be something there just because they do make Ghost Rider 2 and 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not a fourth one, I don't think.
No, I don't know. Did they make a third one?
I swear there was a third one, but maybe not. I'll have to look into it. But there's at least a second one.
Yes.
Again, if we're all like, okay, we all get that this is bad,
mm-hmm.
there has to be that some type of redeeming thing.
Yeah.
And if it's so bad that it's good, or it's so bad that it's purposely trying to be bad,
mm-hmm.
and Nick Cage is trying to be Nick Cage,
mm-hmm.
then
mm-hmm.
I can see how that comes off as enjoyable.
The concept of so bad it's good, I think it's kind of, if you would imagine it almost on a circle, kind of a snake eating its own tail, or so to speak. It's going to come back around at a certain point that if a film's so bad there is genuine enjoyment to it. Nick Cage is the key to that here, and with his comedy, and maybe a little into that harebrained writing, he says he watches too much TV. He eats only yellow and red jelly beans, specifically, littered around his entire house.
Well, flames.
Yeah. He's not Ghost Rider yet, though. I mean, he's kind of going into the branding a little too hard.
Oh my gosh!
He also reads like transcendentalist scripture, and it's just very odd. It is very odd. I honestly don't know why the writing would put these in. I don't know if they're deep cuts to it, but I would say I'm largely at a loss for words for how much surprisingly works in this film, and almost every point that works, there is something bad to meet it. I would say, let me rapid fire some of these. On the good side, we got Nick Cage. Special effects, not CGI. Not CGI specifically.
Like the practical effects,
exactly.
Pyrotechnics a little bit?
There's a very good shot where he is walking with his boots, and there is just flames rising from the boots.
Looks
that
pretty
clearly done with like a kerosene or some sort of practical
effect.
It
Looks good.
Absolutely.
Cool, all right. Get down with that.
The comedic aspects, again, like it or not, this movie is funny and like holds up to be funny. I think as well, some credit goes to Eva Mendes comedically, because she has a kind of almost a Hitch energy to it. Like she's in her element
That's fun.
in this kind of comedic way.
That's fun.
Or at least, kind of rom-com way. I would say there's some cool villains. The bad boy demons, the devil himself. Primarily, Peter Fonda is playing, maybe not the devil, but like Mephisto or something like that.
Yes.
Devil in Marvel Universe. And I also think there's some decent pacing. This movie really moves on along at a clip, and it's not going to be bad pacing in the way that I will talk about in the movies we have to come. There is a decent aspect here that the movie's just not wasting your time too much, especially when it comes to him progressing as Ghost Rider. I mean, we are like, day is romance, night is Ghost Rider. Day is romance, night is Ghost Rider.
Okay.
By day 3, we're at the end of the movie. You know what I mean? It's not wasting a single moment, and I think that's decent pacing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
On the bad side, Nick Cage, equally, you know what I mean? It's a force of good, but it is also an equal force to meet it. I would say most of the acting here, beyond Nick Cage and some of the main actors, I would say, unfortunately, the squad of bad boy demons that are our antagonists here, really, it's some really cringe acting and writing. The romance itself, I do not think is good. The writing is, once again, it falls into this generic origin story. I would not be Vincent Daly if I did not crucify the soundtrack here. This soundtrack is just playing, rock blues, Bad to the Bone, just like the who's who,
Yeah, it's just the most generic as generic can come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if if you had a gun to your head and you had to say, "Oh, what's guy playing a biker bar?" Like that's this soundtrack. I would say most critical here is just weak action. I would say the real Achilles heel here is how just cheap the action feels. Ghost Rider has nearly every set piece end in a one-hit kill. There is maybe slight lethality that, Ghost Rider is really like an unstoppable force that is communicated here, but it feels vapid. Even in the biggest moments that we're facing off against the big demon bad guys, it really just boils down to Ghost Rider taking some hits and then still just, it's a one-hit kill. And it's just, it really feels weak. Empty, vapid,
give us some good act. Give us some fight sequence, basically.
Exactly.
It's two there and it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did not, of all things, expect this to come from how rule of cool this movie is trying to be. You'd think the director and the team behind it says, hey, we're putting, special effects budget into his boot print.
Right.
I don't know why there isn't some love into the action set pieces or using his powers creatively or anything like that.
Going into it, I would just assume, we're going to get some cheesy, bad fight sequences here. That's what you would think.
Yeah. It resolves the conflict way too easy. Yeah, maybe I'm on the outlier of
I don't
thinking
think so.
that it would be something notable.
It wouldn't be good, probably.
Right. Yeah.
But it's weird that they're quick. It's weird that they're snappy, especially because, it's kind of what you sign up for when you watch a movie like this.
Absolutely. It's an action movie. It's a superhero action movie. So if the action is failing, then, again, that is as much as a positive as the real laughs I got out of this film.
Yeah.
And not even laughing at it at some points. A big force to meet it is, once again, just, something so critical as the action itself failing is a pretty big problem. But that was only, this was the only one that I even vaguely had a desire to revisit, because Ghost Rider was a very early addition to when we were starting to write down these scores.
Yeah, right.
We started off with. And I, on top of me watching these seriously enough and critically enough to abide by all of my scores, I really do believe that this film falls in a very perfect middle ground of just having catastrophically bad with it and chaotically good as well.
Some enjoyment coming out of it still.
There's a weird mix there. I would say...
I find that you get that often with Nick Cage. I think if there's any actor, that you have to point to so bad it's good.
Yeah. And Ghost Rider definitely is added to his long line of potential so bad it's good recommendations. But more than anything, I found myself... I was going into this, again, with the expectation of all these other films for it to be colossally bad, and I really found myself more middle of the road than anything, which was slightly a delight. Again, there was odd enjoyment in how bad this film was, and there were some admirable qualities. We're going to go ahead and give Ghost Rider a 50 on the dot.
Wow.
I think I want to run this by you live, too.
Yes, please.
Do you think the 50 should be reserved for the so bad it's good? Or does that not communicate the bad side? That it's a primarily bad movie.
Yeah, because you can have you can have like much worse movies, but it's still good. And I think there's some of those on the site as well. No, I don't think a 50 should be that. It's funny because I think this might be the only 50 we have.
I think I don't know. I think
there's a 49 on there. I think a 51 or 2. Like we just had the Adam Project. That was a 51. But 50 itself, boy, no, I don't think it's so bad it's good. 50 should be. You will walk away an absolute mediocre, subpar, not good, not bad film.
Yeah,
because when it's so bad it's good. It means it's a bad movie. It means just straight up a bad movie. A 50, it's like, it's not a good movie. It's not a bad movie. And
that's Ghost Rider.
And that's Ghost Rider, what it sounds like. Sure. Yeah.
It has enough conflict between the two qualities.
I think there's a good case to be made that there's some movies even in the 30s where it's so bad it's good.
Oh, for
Those
sure.
should definitely stay away from 50.
And we talked about The Room not too long ago, too.
Yeah. Well, there was the other Nick Cage movie, the crazy one.
Prisoners of Ghostland.
Yes. That was kind of like it's so bad it's good.
Definitely so bad it's good. But also definitively bad.
Right, definitively way lower than a 50.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at 50.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
What an interesting score. I don't know why. 50 is like it's such an interesting score to me. I don't know why.
It is.
It's one we don't touch. Exactly. So it's almost like 100s we don't touch.
Right. Because I think it's potentially an insult to call something so mediocre. It's directly middle of the road. But
I mean, insult. You
Ghost Rider is
Catwoman a 7. Don't talk about insults.
And a 7 it deserves.
But no, I think yeah. I kind of love that.
Okay.
If anything's going to be a 50,
Good.
the fact that it's Ghost Rider, there's something I like that.
Okay.
And there wasn't Ghost Rider 3. It was in the talk.
Oh.
It was in the talks and never happened.
Yeah, because I remember some seeing something on the second one, but I don't think.
Yeah, 50. I mean, that makes sense. They made a second one out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're going to be rewatching it anytime soon. Maybe.
Maybe for like a Nick Cage specific kind of night.
Right. Okay, so that's Ghost Rider with a 50%, straight 50. We're going to move on here to Green Lantern. This is 2011 and Ryan Reynolds. And what was this? Was this like when comedians started getting involved a little bit more? This was made for a purpose, and it's just like...
This was absolutely made, and I don't know for sure. I mean, this is speculation, but with how this film is trying to establish something, this was absolutely them trying to, or rather, I should say DC, trying to get an Iron Man type of personality, a hate-love type of character, a fast-wit character.
Right. And with the jokes and this.
Yeah.
That's why they went for Ryan Reynolds.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's so much that is, I mean, this movie is all set up. There's nothing satisfying about this movie. It is 100% setting up the larger Green Lantern universe, and the film itself is focusing on nonsense. I mean, it's just a setup film to kick off a franchise. We covered, obviously, Catwoman was DC, Ghost Riders from Marvel. We're back to DC. If you told me that the director of two of the best James Bond movies...
my gosh. I had no idea. We sat down, folks, to record this, and Vin was just like, just wait till you see. And I was putting the movies up, and I was just like, oh, my word.
GoldenEye and Casino Royale.
Directed by Martin Campbell, and so...
And I still love them. Those are phenomenal movies.
Yeah, damn straight. Casino Royale is... a phenomenal Bond and overall great movie.
Oh, absolutely. And if anything, this sparked some very much interest. We may give Campbell his own little spotlight in a little bit, but I for him to want to tackle a DC movie, a DC superhero movie, I wouldn't believe you. Even less believable is the quality of this film.
I know. It's not like he was trying to be like... It's like, oh, Chris Nolan's doing his thing at Batman. I'm going to do Green Lantern. Like, there's no way.
This is total corporate. We need to respond to Marvel establishing their universe. Because by 2011, I think Avengers 1 is out. And they see that...
They definitely have some established. I mean, Iron Man's already taken off, and the movies are in production,
Yeah, we definitely still have... We have the assembling pieces of Marvel's universe, which I think... Everyone doubted at the time. 2011 for DC, I think they're shaking in their boots a little bit, and they said, we got to take a stab at this. To start with, Green Lantern is just so ridiculous.
So dumb.
I like Green Lantern.
They got the director.
I actually do. You're right. You think you're like, that's them hedging their bet.
Right.
They're like, we got this guy,
And Ryan Reynolds. But the character of Green Lantern you like.
I do. Green Lantern is a space cop, basically. The Green Lantern light is the power of will, which is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and the Green Lantern Corps is basically, I mean, not to oversimplify it, but it's like space cops. They all wear a ring. They have a sector of space that they're in charge of protecting.
Yeah, it's a cool premise.
Yeah, and very... very big galactic universal scale to this. I mean, the sectors of space that they cover are massive as far as who's responsible for who. So it's odd, and I will absolutely return to it because it's the cornerstone of this of my criticism with this film. It is mind-boggling that we focus on events on Earth when we're dealing with galactic threats.
Yeah, you want to be... You want to be, planet hopping.
Yeah, I want to be with the Green Lantern Corps, not in the budding romance between Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, which I guess they actually found true romance on this film. So they really expected a Iron Man effect with this one. Ryan Reynolds plays Hal Jordan. He is a hotshot fighter that is chosen by the Green Lantern ring, which holds, again, the galactic force of the Green Lantern Light. The Green Lantern Light, his superpower, maybe not as understood as Ghost Rider or the literal cat in Catwoman, is the idea of imagination. His willpower is able for him to kind of craft anything that comes to his imagination and project it through the ring. The film juggles the locations of Earth, which is painfully generic.
Yeah.
And deep space, or rather the home planet in deep space, to the Green Lantern Corps, which are basically, again, very, very powerful guardians of space. This film really stumbles in this way because we are maybe given, I mean, this is even generous, 15% of the film is
off Earth.
Is like off Earth, is with the Corps, is with him even learning about his powers, with the people that are, with the interesting aliens where there's an ounce of credit to design and character, and creatures.
If you put thought into this and have a team behind it that actually cares, the premise could be amazing.
Oh, for sure.
How much?
Green Lantern's like a staple of Fantastic, not Fantastic Four, what am I saying? Justice League as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is a main member.
How cool would it be if if this wasn't an origin story and you went into it and the Green Lantern was already had his stuff down? Because then you don't have to waste that time.
You hit the nail on the head with my problem with all these origin stories. Why do we have to have? It's
a lot of wasted time. I mean, well, listen, I'm okay with the introduction of a character, and if the early 2000s is going to give birth to a trend-setting moment of superhero movies, I'm okay with learning about the characters. But sometimes it's just for content-wise, and if you want to make a good movie and stick with the franchise, obviously you want this to do well and have other Green Lanterns made. Sometimes it's a little bit just let's get into it right
Absolutely. Away. And they wanted to make sequels in this. I mean, this film has a very unsatisfying ending because it's building up for the real big bad guy of the Green Lantern, comic book history, which is Sinestro. It is unreal, though. I mean, if there is a stumble in understanding which of those two settings is the more interesting one, the real fall on its face is the CGI in this film, and there is a nauseating abundance of CGI.
Yeah.
When the Green Lantern power is on screen, or even aliens, a part of the Corps, are on screen, it just looks flat out bad. It's just far too smooth. It's far too clean. We see this actually probably most prevalent in Ryan's mask that he wears. There is a mask that
even looks bad.
It covers up his eye. It looks the worst. It doesn't even look bad. It looks the worst because they change his eyes because it's supposed to be like an identity. It's also very, secret identity kind of stuff. It feels like even by 2011, this is who really needs that in their superhero mythos. But it's ooh, it's so bad. It is possibly the worst thing I've seen. It makes Ryan look not only like a floating head because the entire suit is CGI, so it's cutting off at his neck, but then not even the full real estate of his face, no less an actor's eyes is then CGI as well. It is.
They should have just gave him contacts.
I know. There is. I don't know. And they get rid of it at a certain point in the film, but the big action sequences, it's still there,
How bad was the CGI compared to a much, much newer movie, which was Justice League, which was watching a video game at times?
I would say definitely worse.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely worse. I think it's an understanding that they don't ground any sort of realism. And you can say, well, the same thing is true about a Marvel movie. I mean, Christ, you have Spider-Man dressed up in a mocap suit for the entire film. He can't even wear regular clothes now because they have to do CGI added to it.
Yeah, Marvel is by no means a benchmark that you're trying to hit.
But this, there's a toxic mix of bad fidelity to the CGI and bad implementation as well. It's real bad. And again, you need an example of what I'm talking about. It's a shame because there is a lot of creative design put into the many aliens. I mean, the hundreds of alien designs that is supposed to be, around the universe, around the galaxy at least. One, no spotlight is given to them, and instead we're just given scenes where Ryan Reynolds is like in a waiting room, an alien waiting room, and he's just like, it just looks like he's a floating head because the body looks so bad.
It's that bad.
It looks so bad. Oh man. It's just rough. There is also, once again, and who am I to talk about the actual graphic fidelity or the technical side of this? But there's another choice for a higher frame rate in the action sequences when he flies. Yeah, it's odd. I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's a huge.
Is it
gap
frame rate or is it just something weird? With the CG,
I don't know. It could be also potentially be upscaling from like an HBO Max or something like that. They have streaming services have been known to mess with animation.
Okay, all right,
and make it look smoother. I don't know though, but it definitely looked worse for it.
Okay,
so I'm going through my notes. It's just still like, wow, is the CGI bad? There's just so much. Let's talk about why this hurts the powers of Green Lantern. Again, the powers of Green Lantern are imagination. So when Ryan Reynolds is spawning a Hot Wheels track for a falling car, there is also a goofiness to the implementation of the design. The classic Green Lantern, or at least Hal Jordan Green Lantern, the classic move is he creates a minigun. You know what I mean? It could be literally anything that he has in his imagination projected by the ring. The choices for what they give to make this Green Lantern look cool fail completely. It's just rough. Again, we have the scene is a falling. Was it a plane or a helicopter? I think it's a helicopter. We have a falling helicopter. He spawns green wheels on it. And then he spawns an entire Hot Wheels track to go on like a flaming nightmare trip for all the crowd to be screaming. How about you spawn? Hey Brian, how about you spawn like some safety balloons or something? You know what I mean? Or some big water or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
It's just like wow. And that's really the theme with this whole week. It's just like, wow, it's this bad. Events are ordered very poorly in the screenplay. The logic of the script just does not make sense in the parts where we should be focusing on. Like I said, actually in that same sequence, we're an hour in. Ryan has the Green Lantern's powers. He has traveled across the universe to their home planet. He has participated in training with multiple alien species, and somehow we're on a cocktail mixer on Earth. What? How does a script fail to understand what is interesting in what it has going on?
Oh my gosh. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You think it's just like the classic scene in Star Wars meeting in the bar at the cantina. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just that kind of stuff. You have the option of the universe in front of you.
Exactly. It's like a romance drama between a scorned lover, Blake Lively, and
my word.
Constantly, the film is then retreading the same info dumps that we already know because we get the info dumps for the first time with Ryan in the alien segments, and guess what? Now we have to sit through Ryan explaining them to the Earth terrestrial characters and. This split
fat that could be trimmed left and right. Yeah.
This split reminds me right on the money of what is wrong with Transformers, that the actual events of the movie are just everything we don't care about as an audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's rough. It's just very surprisingly it's just how much is unearned in this film, especially in the romance drama that is played out on Earth. Lines come off as laughable and once again just painfully generic because they're tied to this origin story bullshit. I was shocked when the film was finally in its final fight scene because it just left such a waste of time and no payoff existent in what it was going for. It just kind of came to an end with the lovers' quarrel. It's just insane. Do not watch this movie. We're going to go ahead and give Green Lantern an 18.
Oh my gosh, under 20%, 18%.
Slightly more of a functional movie.
Oh my gosh.
At least it did not have the crazy editing of Catwoman.
Poor Martin Campbell. Because if you look at his movies, hey, you got some good movies in there. This is really bringing down the cred, though, if you take the average.
Absolutely.
Yikes, 18% for Green Lantern. I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Really, I don't think the audience is going to be surprised.
No.
And the producers at all,
No. And definitely a first stumble in that DC universe. I mean, think about how many times they really tried to do this reverse Marvel. I know
when
this
Marvel
was the first stumble.
Yeah, Marvel hit with, right off the bat with Iron Man.
Exactly.
And Robert Downey Jr.
Exactly.
And boy, oh boy, is Ryan Reynolds Robert Downey Jr. Okay, all right. A lot of potential and falling flat.
Oh, yeah.
As often superhero movies do. Okay, so let's keep this going. We are at Fantastic Four. This is not the early 2000s one. This is the 2015 Fantastic Four. So many for another episode we can do.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
2003 Hulk. The 2007 or 11 Hulk.
Yeah. I'll have plenty more ammunition when the next, bad superhero movie comes out.
But no, this is Fantastic Four. It's 2015, and the main actor is Miles Teller.
Mm-hmm. And Michael B. Jordan.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
You have
Kate Mara.
Yeah, from House of Cards. I always known her from.
Sure. So what do we have with this rendition of Fantastic Four?
So I always heard horror stories about this movie that it was falling victim to studio meddling, a la Suicide Squad or Justice League. But this really predates both of those films and might be the first instance of it. Director-wise, we have Josh Trank, who was a bit of a rising star back in 2015. 2012, we see Chronicle being a cult hit for him.
With him. And then again, there is the reason why we announced two directors in the beginning, because there's this Stephen E. Rivkin did play a part. He's uncredited. But we made note of it because there is notations of it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So I don't know if that's the studio then stepping in, because apparently at some point in this project he had it straight up just stripped away from him.
Okay.
Which at least to the credit of other Marvel properties, even in Fox's control over it. I think it was Fox that did this.
Okay.
There at least is a if there's going to be a director dispute, a classic is Edgar Wright and Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, which thank God he didn't do.
Probably would have been a good movie.
Yeah, it might have been. But usually they don't let it get into production, no less finish the movie before they do their meddling.
Right, okay.
They have a little bit of a preconception of where is it going and where do they want it to go. I think it's an important note to make with this film because there are definitely aspects that have vision behind this film. There is style, there is vision behind this film.
Okay.
But it comes out of total left field because the movie just does not support it. Because it has basically three different movies in one. It's really a mess. The first third is a fun young adult high school romp. It's focused on science, has almost like a Breakfast Club vibe, We see the Fantastic Four being all high school age students, so they are a much younger version of the Fantastic Four.
Right.
Like all Fantastic Four origin stories, they are scientists first that come across these powers, So it has almost not a Stranger Things vibe, but definitely a young star type of vibe in the beginning.
Is it Power Ranger type vibes?
Maybe. Oh, it's been a minute since I saw that back.
Put that.
Yeah. I've almost wiped that out of my memory.
Hey, it's on the site.
Yeah, it is.
But you know what I mean? That coming of age with multiple people, because so many of these stories start with high school kid gets powers.
Exactly.
But you have the group together.
Yes.
Getting
and
powers.
they're scientists first, so there is follow through on that. And it's not that this young adult part is so bad. It's definitely not good. It's definitely not funny, and it's trying to be funny. But by 2/3 in, we have a complete 180, and it portrays their superpowers as, no joke, like a body horror suspense horror film.
Oh, like them coming into
the realization of these powers. It is portrayed straight up like a horror film. And that is where the director... Good. Exactly. And it is good in ways.
Right.
This middle segment is kind of interesting because...
It's very serious, huh?
Yeah. Oh, 100% serious. I don't think there's a single joke in this. And I'm not saying that it has to be not jokey.
But if the whole movie was that,
exactly.
you have a completely different superhero movie on hand.
More than most, I think Josh really got the short end of the stick here with this studio meddling, because not only is this switch in tone jarring, disturbing, because it is really like, body horror. It's an interesting interpretation of like Mr. Fantastic has stretchy arms. Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty terrifying the first time you're experiencing.
Oh my gosh,
that,
absolutely.
Yeah. Everything in between, it is 180. That is really the way I would describe it. There is no more opposite it can get than this film. And then by the final third, we have the film slapping together for our standard superhero coming together rah-rah type of thing, which is, again, just as jarring, coming off of a near depressing type of tone with them coming into their powers, and especially when we incorporate our main villain, Dr. Doom, which is, bound to be the only villain we explore with the Fantastic Four. It is portrayed to some of the most horrific levels I've ever seen a superhero movie done, and it's a shame because I can't be 100% sure if this section was Josh Trank's vision. But it definitely does have vision behind it, and the film is impossibly messy because it does not commit, or it, even if this was all his product, then there is a failure in understanding of what that middle portion does.
Yeah. Interesting. So it really is 3 different movies in one.
It is 3 different movies in one, and it is really bad. The result is it all doesn't work. I think summarizing this really does no good, but if you don't know, the Fantastic Four are a group of scientists, like I said, coming into a cosmic force of some sort. It's always some sort of space force, and this is kind of a dimensional thing that they're coming across, and producing 4 unique powers. We have Mr. Fantastic with stretchy arms, Sue Storm with invisibility, Ben Grimm with rock powers becomes the Thing, and Johnny Storm as the Human Torch. Dr. Doom, once again, is presented here. I want to give credit to some of what is done to create some originality in presenting this, in how they get their powers, in how they interact with each other, and all that credit goes into that second third. We see our characters get abused by the government because they kind of broke the law to get to this cosmic force in the first place. So they're really lost without a paddle. But again, it goes out the window. Any kind of praise I can give to the middle chunk of this film is just wholly unsupported throughout the film.
Okay.
It is just so drastically different. I would say for that beginning half, this Breakfast Club vibe does not work. I just don't understand how we go from the literal set piece is a high school science fair, and then the next logical step is them developing interdimensional travel. Maybe some adult supervision, not for literal high school people, high school students. Maybe ease in a little bit. Maybe they felt they were rushing a little bit. I don't know. But despite the attempt to be lighthearted here, the beginning is really just joyless and awkward. The jokes don't land. It feels committee kind of jokes. It feels very boardroom. That they're trying to make these characters likable. And again, it's just absolute nonsense that these 4 children would be put in charge of the first dimensional experiments on any U.S. soil, the world. It's just ridiculous. We establish a lot of time with Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, and Ben Grimm, the Thing, both in that high school fair, and there's maybe a light brotherhood that comes through there. A lot of time is put on that relationship between Reed and Ben because they were they were friends first rather than colleagues first.
Okay.
I think a result of putting so much one-on-one time between these two is we really don't get a lot of development with Sue Storm, who is supposed to be Reed's love interest.
Yeah.
And we don't get a lot of time.
Yeah, you would expect her to have second most screen time and script, yeah.
For sure. Or at least share and be self-aware that you have to share the real estate, because Sue Storm and then also Johnny Storm, Human Torch, they don't get a lot of time. And
right.
Michael B. Jordan is actually pretty enjoyable as far as his acting performance here.
Okay.
So it was a big shame. 1 hour in, though, and we basically have a full reset on the film, and we are just getting our teens to get their powers. It's very slow going. Again, the original movies, I don't really remember loving the first two original Fantastic Four, but at least there was like excitement or at least comedy around their discovery of powers. I think why the second half is so jarring for turning into this horror tone is because we have comedic, lighthearted high schoolness, and then it's just like, wow, they just all hate each other, and they're all like psychologically damaged because of the body horror they have to go through. It just comes off so tasteless. It just really is terrible. And again, I can't be sure what is exactly Josh's intentions here, but if he has any play by the end of it, the last third does not make sense either, because how do we go from these horrific themes to, all right, team, we got to get together and stop Doctor Doom.
Right,
it's way too campy then. You know what I mean? The superhero ending that, I mean, honestly, all Fantastic Four stories, I mean, it's like, it's either they got to use all their powers together or they got to put one person with all the powers, you know what I mean? It's,
right.
They have no other way to write the conflict. It's rough here because it just feels so out of left field. And once again, like, the fact that we go through that not once but twice within the film.
It's too jarring. It's
very jarring. Yeah. The end just fails at slapping it all together and trying to just resemble some sort of Frankenstein's monster of a superhero movie. It is really bad with horror all of its own, but seriously, it might really be one of the most messy movies I've seen in modern day, just because it's just all over the place and just holds very little enjoyment. There's no enjoyment in the first third. There's no enjoyment in the second third. There's it keeps your eyes peeled, and there's definitely no enjoyment in the generic origin superhero nonsense that the third final act comes into. And we're gonna go ahead and give Fantastic Four 2015 a 22.
Ooh, a 22. I love it. I love these scores.
No, this is too much morbid enjoyment. I don't like this. I had to sit through these.
It's true. I know. That's what I love about it. I didn't have to. But at 22% again, can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Can't say Fantastic Four 2015 got a score of 22% there on that one. Okay, so with that, we have one more movie left. It is our brand new movie, the one that's now released in theaters. But before that, again, folks, we're just going to take our time here to remind people this is our donation segment, and this is where we want to thank the producers who make this happen. No producers this week, but we're still young, we're still starting out and everything like that. Site's finally back up and running the way it should be. And again, folks, we don't want to look at you as just listeners or an audience or anything like that. We want to look at you as producers. Where Vin and I sit here and we host the show every week, you all produce the show and actually make it possible. You're actual real producers. And how you can become a producer is you go to thedailyratings.com, you go over to the donations tab, and through a monetary support of your choosing, you choose an amount of whatever you want, and basically that's how you become a producer. Along with sending in a donation, you go ahead and send in a note. You give any amount of money, we'll read it here on the podcast. If you don't want your name to be said on the podcast, you just click the anonymous box. And what it is, it opens up a through line with you. It helps us keep going and not having to do advertisers here on the website and the podcast. But it also opens up dialogue with you all. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Do you have suggestions? Especially with this early on in the podcasting site, there's a lot of room and improvement, and who knows what direction we can go in. It's kind of, it's your show, really. We're just putting it out there in the ether, but you guys listening, you guys producing is what really making it a thing. So
and that's why we love the value for value model, because it really speaks to, is this viewing guide helping you?
Yeah.
Save time. I mean, I don't know if you'd ever watch Catwoman, but but now you know you don't have to.
And like you just said, it's the value for value model. Are you getting value from this? Well, then could you show some value? What value is that? Put that towards a monetary amount. Again, it's dailyratings.com. Head over to the donations tab, and we appreciate all of you who produce and or will produce this podcast and website, and we thank you for that. All right, so we're going to keep this going here with our big blockbuster movie. It's now in theaters. Then we have Morbius. We've seen the trailers. If you went to the movies in the past 5 years, you probably saw the trailer for it multiple times. What do we get with Morbius and Jared Leto?
So to start off, I need to stress there is no meaningful connection to Spider-Man or the greater Marvel universe. A lot of trickery is done by Sony to make you think this is among the required watching that the MCU is famous for. I can stress, though, there is no meaningful connection. And
oh, really?
Sony is really scraping the barrel for it's proof of having, some C-list comic book character like Morbius to have his own movie.
Really?
They're really stretching it.
Wait,
here.
so this not count as in the Marvel Avengers universe?
Very technically, it's in the expanded Spider-Man universe.
Which Spider-Man is that?
Tom Holland, basically.
Oh,
the Tom
okay,
Holland
okay.
era.
Oh, right, because he doesn't... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It is in, technically there. It is, I can stress, though, especially from my recommendation, this is not among required watching and really should not be worth your time too much, because Morbius is really C-list. I wouldn't even put him in B-list among Spider-Man's rogue gallery.
Really?
Morbius is no one. The fact he's getting his own movie is a joke.
I wonder why.
Because they are scraping the barrel. They are looking for any Spider-Man property they can tie into Venom, and when they finally get that contract back, guess what? Now they're going to have their own Spider-Man movie.
Well, it's already talked about. They are going to come out with another... With more Spider-Mans.
Oh, for sure.
It's been floated around with. But Tom Holland belonged to Marvel Universe one because he's in the Avengers, correct?
Yes.
So now they're trying to rebranch and bring in Venom and Morbius.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, my point in going through all this almost useless nerd knowledge is that, again, Sony is using a lot of trickery to make sure people are reading the Daily Bugle as their newspaper or yada yada.
Yes.
It is not anything required. There is nothing of substance here, and if anything, it falls into just, again, more of these very generic origin story comic book tropes. Oddly enough, I would say, despite jumping through the same hoops as one of those Marvel movies, this really is like an anti-Marvel film. Very little jokes in this film, at least not in the Marvel kitsch kind of way.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's very understandable why we have a very broad, very wide variance difference between critic scores and audience scores on this one.
Oh, okay.
I could see where people that are sick of Marvel, even though this is a Marvel property, I can understand some of the difference there in people liking this movie and thinking it's just fine with that. So I was not too hot on this, but it's something to note because I think anyone's perspective on these movies is important. Morbius stars hotshot Jared Leto, not Leto. I look back to what was I reviewing with him? House of Gucci, of course. And I kept on saying Leto, and it's one of those things I got fixated on. And I listened to that episode now, and I don't like it. But Leto is Sony's next villain hero flick with Morbius. Michael Morbius and his best friend Milo are afflicted by a debilitating disease. Contrary to both of this, they both live leading lives of wealth and fame. It is only when Morbius has a breakthrough in curing this affliction, this disease, that we see that friendship tested by temptation, and what greater temptation is there than vampirism? The temptation of blood. It is really, I mean, this film, PG-13 has never had so little blood.
Oh, really?
It is unreal that this movie is PG-13 and is a vampire film. I went back and I've actually recently, thankfully, have been able to just watch some movies not for the podcast. It's been almost impossible, but I've finally gotten some things. I actually watched Blade 2. And
we got to put that on.
But I wanted to watch it just for the sake of it. And it's like, it's insane how this film is PG-13 and has such little blood. It's the same criticism I have with Venom and those series. These characters of Morbius, of Venom, these anti-heroes, they are defined by violent actions. Why the hell would you not make this rated R? Learn from Logan, learn from Deadpool, you know. It is unreal.
I don't know.
You're different.
Well, no, I'm just thinking practically as far as trying to reach an audience. They're trying to siphon off your mainstream MCU.
True.
It needs to be
I know.
PG-13. But it sounds like they could have got away with a lot more and still be PG-13.
I think so. Yeah, a classic thing. You'll see like a strike of the throat or something like that,
right.
and there's just no blood comes out. Also, a plot point in this is Michael Morbius has made a medical breakthrough to have artificial blood. So a lot of the actual blood in this is just replaced with blue goo, which is kind of creative writing.
Yeah, I think regardless, you can't get away from the PG-13. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot better they could have done, even with the PG-13 rating.
Exactly. Speaking of demographics, though, I mean, the writing is pretty edgy here. 13-year-olds will love this, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with a dark, edgy flavor, but it really does invite in bad writing habits. Pacing, I think, is a main fault here. Very messy in the first act. We're just racing through his relationships, his affliction, trying to get to a point that he's interested in becoming a vampire, and it's just far too quick. It does hit a little bit of a stride in the second act, while Morbius has his powers. There is a kind of a police investigation into him, and I think it does kind of hit a little bit of a stride. But once again, what is the theme of this week? The end or the final act in this has to fit into this same superhero origin story box that they have to fight off against someone, and there's got to be sequel bait. This is 100% here as
It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And I will say...
setup. It's just setup. It's volleying the character for future.
Exactly. I will say the setup here as well is not too interesting. I mean, you can even look at like Green Lantern, and like at least they're teasing mainline things to Green Lantern's universe. When it comes to Morbius, the teases we get are towards the connecting of the Spider-Man universe, and they come off extremely weak. Even as like a comic book fan, I cannot imagine people are excited over this.
Oh, God, okay.
But that's really, you know, when it comes into that pacing and when it comes into my critique of that edgy writing, if there is no follow-through on the darker themes of this film or the subject matter that our anti-hero is a literal vampire, you know, I don't know. If it's just going to boil down to the same type of superhero ending that you've literally seen your entire life, then what is the point here? You know, it's all been there, done that. I would say when it comes to something that kind of breaks the mold is a little bit of the best friend being the focus. Matt Smith is pretty solid and entertaining here as Milo, as his best friend. Ultimately, it's half praise, though, because this movie has a very dumb love interest, which once again has been a theme this entire episode. And it really just crowds the space. I would have loved for there to be no love interest, and we just focus it solely on this friendship being strained between Matt Smith and Jared Leto. It once again, that sweet spot that it hits, it's primarily in that second act as well. But the movie just fails to understand what's working halfway through of it and has to check the boxes, which is...
It's so annoying.
Yeah, and annoying really is the word.
Yeah, because again, it's if you want to take it all the way back to 22 years ago with Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man, but let's just start with the whole big Marvel push, which was 2018. We're 2008. We're approaching 15 years of the same type of movie being made. And if you're going to introduce now a new anti-hero, it's just like, can we break the mold a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe that ties into what I'm saying with rated R. I mean, if this was a full-on rated R movie, maybe there'd be some shocks to it. Maybe they could do something creative for once,
but I still think you can do a lot with PG-13. Look how Nolan took the Batman.
Oh, true.
In a 2013 in PG-13, and how he took that and
that's a good point.
And there has been, like you said, you have had some breakthroughs with the rated R for sure. But boy, it's just like there's a mold there, and it's just like, just shake it a bit. Shake it a bit,
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, like I said, as far as the writing in this film, not very jokey at all, and I would say that could be refreshing for a certain audience that is sick to their stomach over the typical Marvel kitsch. And,
absolutely,
absolutely. That's
absolutely
a note for you, Tom, specifically. Don't get me wrong. I think the handful of jokes that are actually in here are very cringy. Of course, the famous one was shown in the trailer that I had to probably see double-digit times with how much movies I'm watching that ties into a in-universe joke with Venom. So it also feels gross because they're manipulating the greater MCU that it has to tie together. It's at least not chock full of jokes in the Marvel way, which again I think illustrates the difference in audience and critic score. And for folks at home, I think this could potentially be refreshing for you. It was not for me, but it could be refreshing for you. Visuals, again, a little bit of a pro and con. I would say the vampiric speed isn't that Morbius has isn't bad CGI, but it becomes a mess in combat. To call back to a different superhero movie, I'll call this Man of Steel syndrome, where it's just a mesh of clashing CGI, and there's really no visual language on screen.
Yeah.
Distinctly different than like a Catwoman where there's no logic in the fight. There is logic here. It just looks bad.
It's messy.
Exactly.
Okay.
I would say a plus is, when it comes to a little bit of Morbius's echolocation, it's got a pretty cool look to it. There's a interesting way that it kind of really coats every inch of the surfaces around him and kind of pulses into kind of a digital dust. It looks pretty good. I would say that was a highlight for me, and I was glad that his echolocation was given a lot of spotlight as far as his superhero power. Unfortunately, one more bad as far as CGI goes is, much like Venom, in scenes where the full transformation and the full CGI aren't used, they use a very Snapchat quality face filter to throw on, a quick flash into his powers or something like that. I'm not saying that the technology isn't impressive, but it comes off amateurish, and I think can be spotted a mile away, especially when there's an intense transformation when he really gets into his powers, these half powers where they just kind of flash a Snapchat filter on his face. It just looks bad, and it was the same thing that I saw with Venom.
Okay,
it looks amateurish. But as you can tell, though, with my criticism, everything good about this has speckles of good, but also very much speckles of bad. I think where it falls into the latter half of where I would put most of these films, which is on the lower half, I should
That's for
say,
sure.
Of the of these films this week. I'm almost in disbelief of just like the films we talked about on the podcast. There is the generic package it's wrapped up in is not enough to save it, and more than anything, I think that this film could be refreshing for some. It was not refreshing for me, and especially when it comes into how generic it comes off and the potential of what it could be, I really do feel that it fits right in with the movies we covered this week as a weak imitator. A superhero movie light, it is watered down, and it is a copycat, and that really is the defining feature of really every film we covered this week, that the copycats may have a critical misunderstanding of what actually worked in the first place with what they're trying to mimic. We're going to go ahead and give Morbius a 37.
Ooh, wow, in the 30s. Mm-hmm. That's actually higher than I thought you were going to give it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
Like I said, there's refreshing aspects. Again, I wasn't expecting to praise the CGI, but
37 is still bad.
Yeah.
But it's
not
just,
a 7.
It's just funny that the 37 is the second best here of today. Boy,
the
okay.
50 is the best.
37% for Morbius then, Vin. Okay, is there anything else you would like to add on this bad superhero week, or are we rolling credits here?
Oh, we are rolling credits. I'm
getting the hell out of here, folks.
Exhausted as they come.
All right, then, Vin. Well, we thank you so much for watching these films. If it was a little bit more painful for you, we apologize, but we always appreciate you stopping by, Vin. And for folks at home, we're just going to run through this just one more time. We have Catwoman with a 7%, Ghost Rider with a 50%, Green Lantern with an 18, Fantastic Four, that 2015 version, with a 22, and Morbius with a 37%. We thank you so much, folks, for being here with us, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you receive from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode, too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.